Screen.
Oh, touch the screen.
And then
Huh?
see where it says turn off.
Is the Wi-Fi code?
It means don't speak, and on, that's on now.
You don't have it?
Okay, we're functional now. All right, can everybody hear me all right?
That way I get all the back.
I can.
Yep.
I'm going to assume that they can hear me. My name is Carl Leverins. I'm the chairman of the Local Agency Formation Commission, and I'm about to call it to order. First thing is we'll have the clerk kindly call the roll.
It doesn't work. There it goes. Commissioner Boland,
Here.
Commissioner Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Here.
Commissioner McGrehan,
Here.
Commissioner Sharman, Commissioner Shepard,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Steve Betts,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Larry Bradley,
Here.
Bruce Johnson,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Deborah Lucero,
Here.
and alternate Commissioner Bradley, you will be in for Commissioner Sharman.
Thank you.
For the record, I'm here also. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of last month's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nos. I'll entertain a motion to item 2.2 to that renewing the resolution pursuant to the governor's mandate.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? No.
Chair, just a point of order, since we are on Zoom as well as in person.
Excuse me, you need to identify yourself for the record.
This is Deborah Lucero. This is just a point of order, since we are mixed. If we could do all those, is there anybody against the motion, perhaps, since they can speak up then, but otherwise we don't know how people are voting.
Sounds like a roll call vote then.
No, but we don't have to do a roll call vote. You just have to say all those, is there anyone against this motion? And that way it cuts down time. You don't have to do a roll call vote. I'm just saying, I think.
I thought that's what I did, but I'll be happy to be stand corrected.
Well, it's in the reverse, actually. It's instead of all those in favor, it's anybody against. But anyway, thank you.
All right.
To be
Moving-
perfect, Mr. Chair, just to be perfectly clear, we will be taking, it's Steve over here. We will be taking a roll call vote on every action, period.
Okay, moving forward to the reason everybody's here. 3.1, which is the formation of the Tuscan Water District. And I'll turn this over to the staff. It's my understanding that there are a couple of presentations.
Right. Good morning, commissioners, public. I'm Steve Lucas, the executive officer of the Butte Local Agency Formation Commission. I have a couple of just comments I would like to stay right off the bat. We will have amendments to attachment H, which is the resolution, and I will go through those when we get to them, but I just want to give everybody an up. There's a mistake in there I want to correct. There's also an amendment to section 3 in the conditions that I also will need to correct, and I'll do that as I get to that point. We have received comments from various individuals that came in after the staff report went out. I'm just going to read them to you, and you have all been provided those comments today in writing. Jim Brobeck, Trudy Wishersham had submitted 2 comments. Walt Jewell Amy Raymond, M&T Ranch, with a letter that I will get to later. And Toby Giesensteiner, who also had a request on one of the items I already mentioned. So I will cover these as we go through. I just wanted to let you know they came in. Staff had an opportunity to review them, and they're all in front of the commission. Is PowerPoint ready to go? So I'm going to launch into a PowerPoint. I apologize if it's boring or long for some of it. You've already seen it, but I think it's important that we cover a lot of instrumental facts today, but I will go through it quicker on some than others. So obviously we're here today for the Tuscan Water District formation. And the purpose of today's meeting is to build on Part A. Part A was December 2nd, where we gave you a very thorough informational meeting presentation about all the processes that go towards forming a special district, how it interrelates with all the various state laws and such. I'm not going to go over all of that again. That was Part A. That was just to set up Part B, where we will now have the actual hearing where we will discuss proposal details, conditions of approval, the resolution for adoption, responses to comments, most importantly, perhaps factors considered for review, CEQA findings, and the various powers that the district could have. All right. No, I'm supposed to turn it on. That's right. So as I said, Part B addresses comments received after the December 2nd meeting. Thank you. And until today's meeting, or until the staff report went out, excuse me, and then other comments came in as I've already discussed. All comments received have been reviewed by the commission and its staff, are part of the public record. Comments are an important part of the context. We always appreciate the comments, and the comments were organized into content type for a response in your report. Some mechanics, the public notice was provided in Chico Enterprise Record way back on November 11th as our initial public notice. We have continued this meeting consistently until today. Staff has also had took additional voluntary measures of direct mailings to the landowners, although we were not required to do so. We thought that was in the best interest of the project. And of course, it was posted on the Butte LAFCO website. So just a summary of the project real quick, most of which you already know. It was initiated by landowner petition, which represented about 56% of the acres. The chief petitioners, Rich McGowan, Darren Rice, Ed McLaughlin. There's 102,327 acres in this district. 57,000 plus are the petitioner acreage, which is the 56% of the entire group. Of the total 102,000 acres, there's approximately 89,000 acres that are currently in agricultural usage in the district. The district has about 3,136 parcels that are affected, primarily used for agricultural production. There's a population in the district, approximately 6,500. District assessed value comes in at a little over $1.5 billion. And the estimated value of agriculture within the district is close to $290 million. So what is proposed today is the independent limited purpose special district formed as a California water district pursuant to Water Code Section 34,000. That is the California Water District Code. It is a landowner voter district for which landowner votes are weighted based on assessed values they own. It's an enterprise district with revenue generated exclusively by landowner assessments based on the assessed value of land. And this is one of the fundamental benefits of a landowner district. Those who own the most land and benefit the most from the services pay the most for the improvements. That's very important to remember as we go through this. That is a fundamental point of a landowner voter district. It places the costs largely on those who benefit the greatest. And of course, it's always subject to the Brown Act, Public Records Act, SGMA, CEQA, and LAFCO oversight. Reason I bring those up, it's really important, again, to drive home. This is not a private entity in any way, shape, or form. It's a local public agency, a local government, and it is subject to all of these various rules for transparency. Anybody, anytime could walk into a Tuscan Water District meeting and address them, could ask for records and so forth. So this is, again, not a public-private group or a club. This is a local government agency, subject to all the rules the rest of us have to follow. So some maps real quick, just show you some context. This is a picture of the petitioner lands of the whole Tuscan Water District. The black line on the outside, I recognize it's somewhat difficult to see at a distance, but that represents the district boundary. This shows context of the district within other agencies within the area. The Tuscan Water District being in the north part of this area. Here's another way of looking at it. This is the red circle represents approximately where the Tuscan Water District will serve. You can see it's a good chunk of the Bina Basin. And the last slide really is one that I think is demonstrable of the whole issue of where we are today with special districts and how they assist so greatly in local government, especially when it comes to agricultural uses, irrigation, reclamation, drainage. That map you see is from NACWA, and it represents in colors all of the various local districts that exist within the Central Valley, Sacramento Valley. And you can see where Tuscan shows up on that map is a red circle, kind of a gap where there's no representation at this point. So this is by no means a new thing. It is almost by every means one of the last areas to come to the position where the landowners decided to have local representation. What are the purposes? Organize the landowners into a public agency for the purpose of working cooperatively with the County of Butte, Butte County Water Commission, Finer Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and the 3-member GSAs, Butte Basin Board and 11-member GSAs, Rock Creek Reclamation District, GSA, and they're going to work with them to help implement the groundwater sustainability plans, or GSPs. And I apologize if I go back and forth through this between GSA, GSP, and sometimes I might just say the whole word just for fun. That they're trying to ensure that adequate water is available to continue assisting agricultural uses of the affected area, agricultural uses that have been in place for over 100 and some years. What is LAFCO's role? Well, it's simple. They don't think it's simple sitting up there perhaps, but it's simple, is that we either can approve with or not with conditions, we can modify this proposal, or we can deny the application altogether. Again, hard to see, I realize, but this is really just a glance. So that first box on the left is the petitioner application process, which we are past. We are now at the LAFCO public hearing in the second box from the left. And the protest proceedings will follow this, which will then be followed by a vote of the actual landowners on formation. So you can see we're only 2 steps down a 4-step path so far. So now let's just get into the bricks of this building. The board of directors could be 5, 7, 9, or 11. The TWD has requested we establish this with a 9-member board. You'll see that as condition 7 in attachment F. As you go through, all the ones in red will show you where in the documents you can find those particular statements. But believe me, they're all there. The water code requires the election to be at large, this initial election. So that initial election will be at large based on a 1 vote for 1 acre of land owned. That will change at a later point. It'll switch to assessed landowner or assessed land value as the primary basis for votes. Water code allows for elections by divisions. I think we staff, certainly the commission, and I believe the proponents all firmly believe that the best way to take a landowner voter district and bring it into some more egalitarian way of structuring the votes is to create divisions. We are all in agreement that the division should match, obviously, the number of directors. So there is a condition that's going to be required of the district to submit. It's attachment F, condition number 10. It's going to require them to submit a proposal for divisions to the commission for decision on future votes, but it will be the commission's decision to ultimately decide those division boundaries. That's hugely important in the ability to separate large and small landowners and perhaps well owners or domestic well owners and agricultural well owners. It provides us a lot of opportunity to include as many possible components of the constituency in the process. So their service area boundaries, they're about 102,327 acres. And as I said prior, about 89,000 of that is farm. So almost all of it. It contains 3,100 parcels. And right now, the area is proposed is with contiguous boundaries and has no islands of unserved territory. In other words, no holes in the box. Staff recommends that the service area be approved as proposed, minus any dissenting landowners who request LAFCO to remove their parcels from the district. I can tell you, we do have, this is a good segue into the one comment, and that comment is from M&T Ranch. They have requested formally that of their 5 parcels in the district, that 2 parcels, APNs 395301 and APN 395570, which collectively represents about 1,500 acres of land. They would prefer that to stay within the Butte Basin. Their other 3 parcels will remain in Vina. It's a personal choice, and the law allows anybody who wants to remove themselves to this opportunity. So we'll cover back on that, but that'll be an amendment to the map at the end for resolution purposes. The second item about a boundary is its sphere. For all the commissioners who know this very well, but for you in the audience, a sphere is a boundary that goes beyond the jurisdictional boundary that identifies future areas of growth that may be annexed. The commission has the flexibility to do this today, or they could delay 1 year before and allow this to form and give the district an opportunity to get on its feet. And then we can have a better discussion about the MSR SOI process. There is a condition attached that requires within 6 months of the certificate of completion being recorded that the district come to us with an application and funds to do so. Attachment F, condition number 6. We expect at this time, and staff expects, that there will be a coterminous sphere of influence, meaning the sphere won't be any larger initially than the district boundaries themselves. That's not locked in forever. It'll just, that's an initial decision. So with boundaries, we do not like overlapping boundaries, but the water code does allow for this. Boundaries, some of the boundaries between TWD and Rock Creek will overlap, as will a small portion of the overlap with the sphere of Western Canal Water District. I will point out both those agencies are on the record supporting this, and there is no prohibition against this from occurring. But I do want to make a point in terms of overlapping boundaries, and you can see there, this is attachment F, condition 15 in blue. While the Tuscan Water District would have reclamation powers in one way or another, they are going to cooperatively work with the Rock Creek Reclamation District Board and only work on projects that have the consent and approval of the Rock Creek Board. So there is an overlap, but a process and a condition to give Rock Creek some authority to deny those overlapping projects. Powers and functions. Now we're in sort of the nuts and bolts of what this district will do. First of all, it's a limited purpose district, unlike a CSD or a CSA that can have many, many functions across many areas, fire, drainage, parks. This is all about water and water-related infrastructure. That's just why it's a single suite of services based on the powers allocated in the water code, which are attached to your report as attachment 9. So the 2 primary powers that the water code gives a water district is the acquisition and for waterworks for basically the distribution of irrigation, domestic, industrial, municipal, any drainage or reclamation work. So basically a whole suite of powers related to water and water movement. What you'll see in that first column is there's some little red asterisks on some of those domestic, industrial, municipal purposes, for instance. There is a condition of approval in attachment F that addresses this. The district agrees to not have that power. Cal Water has asked that power not be permitted, and staff is recommending that power not be provided. The second item, it deals with sewage collection services, for which there never was any intent on the proponent's part to do so. And again, that will be a condition that restricts that power in the future. So the district came in and they asked for the powers of the California Water District, all of them, as any applicant probably would, although they did offer certain exceptions from the very beginning, which dealt with no desire to do sewer services, no desire to do municipal industrial water, which is basically domestic water. Butte LAFCO has the authority to determine the powers granted to the TWD at formation and thereafter. So to be clear, it's the powers they have are all the powers that you as LAFCO decide to give them or not give them. And those powers that you activate initially are their powers they can use, and all other powers become latent. They can be exercised at a later date with an application to the commission and a consideration at that time as those powers are warranted. And that's basically what it says in green as well. To ensure the Tuscan Water District can complete all its duties, we have also added conditions of approval that are in attachment F, section 3. And these are now getting into the really important points that many comments we received addressed in one way or another. This particular condition is designed to force the Tuscan Water District to cooperatively work with the County of Butte in making sure that it complies with Butte County Chapter 33, which deals with groundwater conservation. Essentially, what we're saying here in this condition is any proposals that will move groundwater or deal with groundwater as defined in Butte County 33 will need to be reviewed by the county, specifically the Water and Resource Conservation Department, and then a process by which they can offer whether they believe these are consistent or they are not consistent with county code. So again, this ties this project into Butte County Code Chapter 33, which we think is very important because to my understanding, there has not been a single application made to the county since this went into effect for somebody to try to move groundwater out of the county. And I don't expect that we'll see that with TWD, but this condition is designed specifically for that purpose. If the Tuscan Water District has the power to construct, maintain reclamation projects, again, in 16, it requires the consent of the Rock Creek Reclamation District Board. And we will move forward, and this print is getting smaller for my eyes and probably for everybody else. So pursuant to the water code, there are a variety of powers that can be exercised. You're going to hear me say functions, powers, services. They're somewhat interchangeable to a point, and later we can talk more about that with our attorney, should it need to be discussed in greater detail. But first and foremost, the very first condition here is probably one of the most important of the entire project, that the power to export, transfer, or move water underlying the Tuscan Water District, including groundwater pumped into above ground facilities, cannot be moved outside the Vina or Butte basins. For purposes of this condition, groundwater shall have the following meaning. So essentially what you're seeing in A is an absolute prohibition. And I say that again, an absolute prohibition for the Tuscan Water District to move water, export, transfer, or move water underlying the basin outside of the basin. The Tuscan Water District shall not have the power to acquire, plan, construct, maintain, or operate, keep and repair services for domestic industrial. We talked about that already. They are simply not going to be given the power to compete in a sense with Cal Water or any other domestic water provider. They will be prohibited from providing that particular category of service. E refers to the sewage powers once again, so you can see that they are not given that power at all. F is a very interesting condition too that's highly important. Tuscan Water District shall receive approval for any groundwater recharge projects within or under the conditions of 12 and 13. They have to go to the GSA and have those approved by the GSAs. Otherwise, the landowners are restricted from ownership of. Now, I'm going to come back and circle back to this issue of ownership of reclaimed water, and I'm not going to talk about it at this particular moment, but it's an issue that I want to double down on. Funding. This is pretty straightforward. They are an enterprise district. They will receive their revenue from grants, fees, assessments on landowner properties, and it will receive no ad valorem property tax. So there's no property tax being shared with this district whatsoever. The TWD proposes a $10 per acre maximum parcel assessment. The largest landowners, again, will pay the largest share of assessments. What's important about the $10 assessment is that's the maximum assessment. They can charge anything below the maximum assessment. So the initial budget will not reflect the full $10 assessment, perhaps. It has an annual budget proposed, which is attachment C of your report, for $446,000 in year one, which is more than adequate in staff's estimation based on our review of other special districts, the other 42 special districts and CSAs around the county. This is a very reputable beginning revenue stream for this district to operate effectively, and we'll explain why. There's a funding breakdown for a 5-year projection. Year one, starting with what I just referred to at the 445, with a percentage increase over the 5 years based on CPI adjustment alone, that would rise to $527,000 per year. And you can see in the list who they are hiring with those monies. And for the commissioners that have been around for a while and have viewed a lot of municipal service reviews, you can see this is a healthy staff and this is a good budget. We have seen far less funded districts with far fewer staff, and some districts who have almost no budget and have no paid staff. So these folks will be starting off from the ground one with great resources and opportunities and an administrative structure that can begin to make a difference. So the budget determination here, as it's in the fiscal analysis and attachment C, what's important about the funding part of it is it's that number 2 there, and it's conditions of approval, attachment F. The formation will be contingent upon a successful landowner vote. And one of those 3 issues on the vote will be to approve an assessment, a maximum $10 assessment to fund the district sale. So again, 3 things are going to go to the voters. Do you want to form the district? Do you want the district to be funded into this amount? And then who will be the selection of the board of directors? But fundamentally, outside of do you want this or do you not want this, that funding mechanism is all important. And the condition is such that if you cannot meet that funding mechanism, it does not get approved. The district does not exist. It will not be formed. Come on. Let's say loading up there. Can you switch it, Shannon? Intergovernmental coordination. There's a lot to speak about under intergovernmental coordination. All of you know who are in government, nobody acts in a silo. You all have to work together in some way, somehow, to get things done for Butte County. In this case, what Tuscan proposes and their documents support is they will have to work closely with the County Board of Supervisors, Western Canal Water, Rock Creek Reclamation District, Paradise Irrigation District, Glen Groundwater Authority, Butte Resource Conservation District, Northern California Water Association, City of Chico, Durham Irrigation District, California Water Service. I could actually go down a few more who are not as essential, but also have shown support for the district. So let's talk real briefly about Sigma, because there's a clear interaction between Sigma and this district. As it says right there, it relates directly to the implementation of Sigma, which requires local GSAs to create GSPs, their plans. The TWD is primarily located in the Vina Basin, represents about 102,000 acres out of, I believe, about 180,000 acre Vina Basin. So a substantial portion of the basin is covered by TWD. The Vina and Rock Creek GSAs are the groundwater authority in the Vina Basin. The Vina and Rock Creek District GSAs have adopted the Vina Subbasin GSP, and it has been just recently submitted to DWR for review, perhaps this week. The proposed TWD would be formed to evaluate, fund, and implement the projects and actions that are found in these various groundwater sustainability plans. Thank you. I want to make this fundamentally clear because some folks brought up about the overarching powers of the GSA and what they can do. Without getting into that, I just affirmatively say that TWD will not be a GSA. There is not at this time a current path for them to become a GSA. There is a possible way that can happen in the future. It takes multiple steps and ultimately the acceptance of existing GSAs to accept them. But at this point, they are not a GSA, nor are they requesting to be a GSA. The TWD will be required to, and this is another one of these really fundamental backbone conditions that we just cannot let go of. The TWB will be required to enter into an MOU with the Vina, Rock Creek, and Butte Basin groundwater sustainability agencies to guide their relationship in the implementation of the project management actions. Through that MOU with the GSAs, the TWD would consider projects that are identified in the plans, projects, and management actions. So again, TWD is not going to just go off and decide on what projects it's going to do. It's going to form an MOU that talks about the relationship, how they're going to coordinate with one another, who does what and when and how. And then at the end of the day, the GSA is going to give permission to TWD to work on any of those projects identified in the GSA's, GSP's projects and management actions. So this is not a rogue district that can decide on its own how it's going to do water management within its basin. It is inextricably linked to the GSA, and the GSA is the regulator in the basin that TWD will have to work with. So here is the specific condition. I will not read it. It's in your packet as condition 11 in attachment F, condition 12, excuse me. But it spells it out very specifically what they need to do. And one of the important parts here I want you to read is and I'll read it from afar. The failure of the district to successfully enter into an MOU with the GSAs within 1 year of the certificate of completion being filed, that would be when the election is concluded. The TWD shall be dissolved by LAFCO at the request of the TWD Board of Directors. I cannot emphasize how important this is. This district all along and very fairly has said they want to work and be a partner with the GSAs in this process. And to their credit, they went as far as to tie themselves very closely to this process. And without that MOU that describes their relationship, then they are dead in the water in terms of being able to successfully implement those projects. That's why this MOU is so important. Now, I'll leave it at that. Again, these are more going into specifics per the MOU. In condition 12, all activities, actions, projects, proposals initiated by Tuscan within the boundaries related to the direct or indirect management of groundwater resources, including groundwater recharge options, shall be submitted to the appropriate GSA for review and cannot be implemented or initiated until and unless the affected GSA board determines in writing that the proposed activities, actions, and proposals are consistent with the applicable GSPs. Requests not deemed consistent with the GSA's GSPs are prohibited. So again, we're talking about here specifically the issue of dealing with groundwater resources and groundwater recharge. So again, groundwater recharge cannot occur without the consent of the GSA. And at some point, the GSA will have to develop plans and programs that will implement that particular portion of potential projects. Right now, those full out rules do not exist to my understanding. The Tuscan Water District shall receive approval for groundwater projects within the district's boundaries from the appropriate GSA, and the reclaimed or recharged water shall be maintained and used for the general good of the Vina groundwater basin, and the district and landowners are restricted from ownership. Now, I will talk about a particular condition that was received, a request from the proponents, which is to change and alter that last condition 16F. I have it in front of me. They prefer it to read any and all proposals or projects proposed by the Tuscan Water District, including groundwater recharge projects for the benefit of district landowners, shall be submitted to the appropriate GSA under conditions 13 and 17 to determine if the proposal or project proposal is consistent with the affected GSP and in sustaining the groundwater basin. The fundamental difference between what they're asking and what is written on the screen deals with the issue of groundwater recharge ownership. I'll be honest with you, I struggled with this for some time. I wrote the original language to restrict ownership. But after I thought about it some more and I had talked to the proponents, given the conditions that we have saddled this with prior, and I've already discussed, so many things have to go to the GSA. I would prefer that recharge projects be developed, determined, and how to be implemented by the GSA. And the point here is that, but we do not want to unfairly at LAFCO restrict them from ownership of recharge water. If in fact, at some later date, the GSP or the GSAs through their GSPs come up with a plan to deal with groundwater recharge that may or may not have anything to do with groundwater ownership. This is a sort of an open topic at this point. I am confident as staff that we can modify this language given the other conditions. At the end of the day, any recharge project, period, goes to the GSA for review. If they ask to own it or not own it, the GSA is going to review that. The GSA could just as easily say, no, recharge projects under our rules are not going to be allowed to be owned by those who insert the water into the ground. I think it's a GSA decision to make. They're the regulatory body that's been given that power, and they're not quite there yet. Tammy Loser's here from Water and Resource Department if she would like to tell me what I'm saying wrong. But they're not there yet. And when they get there, this will be fleshed out. And what I'm saying is that let's let the GSA regulate this process. Not let LAFCO regulate this process. If the GSA says that works for them, then it would have worked for everybody within the basin, and we would not want to unfairly target this district with a penalty or a restriction that nobody else would share. So I agree and recommend that we do accept their conditional change, and we can talk about that when we get to the resolution again, but just keep that in mind. Again, here we are back to the district shall prepare project description, submit to the GSAs for review. This is condition number 17. I know some of you are sitting there thinking a lot of these conditions seem very similar, and they are. I could have spent more time defining them better to have fewer, but this has been such an important thing, and this has been going on for so long, and there's been such public interest that I felt it was important for the commission to double down on everything. It's better to write a little more than too little when it comes to the restrictions that will guide the TW future. So again, this has everything to do with, again, the GSA having more control over the process, including future CEQA review of projects. The district may proceed with and implement a project if the GSA has determined it is consistent with the GSP and the district has complied with CEQA. So we're now starting to blend GSA approvals for different projects, along with now recognizing that those future projects will be subject to CEQA. That's a place we are not at today. Help me, Shannon. So the big questions simplified for the commission today in the staff report. You have 102 pages that came in today. You had another 100 and some pages in December that thoroughly went through all these issues. Today's staff report thoroughly goes through all the factors for consideration. So based on all of the documents that are in the public record, the big questions are, has a reasonable need for groundwater management services in the proposed TWD been established? Staff believes that the staff report and the application and all matters in the public record suggests, yes, it does. Can the proposed TWD adequately fund itself? As I pointed out, it has a fiscal budget of almost $500,000 to start, which is better than most. Some who are already in this community districts who are funding services with far less. So the answer again is yes, they can fund themselves. Is there a reasonable and implementable alternative to meet the needs? We always look and see if there's a better way to do something at LAFCO. It's our job. That's what's in our policies. Can we find another district willing to do it? Can we find another agency willing to partner? Can we find some combination of agencies that perhaps we could reorganize to meet this need? I think the documents that you have in front of you from December 2nd and today clearly demonstrate that no other single local public agency stepped forward to indicate interest in doing so. And most dramatically in the response to this is, and the clearest one is the county, who is now the jurisdictional authority over that white area, has unequivocally said they are not going to be in the business of running groundwater projects and or irrigation projects or be in the water business within this area. So again, we can say very strongly as staff that alternatives have been considered. They either were not ripe, they were not reasonable, or they were not implementable. So no is the answer to that question. Can concerns raised be effectively addressed with appropriate conditions of approval? I think, as you saw, we have concerns about water leaving the valley. We have concerns about groundwater recharge. You have concerns about overlapping services. We have put in 17 plus conditions on this project that will address each and every one of those concerns to a point where we believe they have been adequately mitigated or been removed altogether. So the answer to that one is yes. So now we're at the point, the action requested. The option one that I'm recommending is approve the proposal as submitted today, adopt environmental finding as shown in the draft resolution, attachment H, and then move to adopt resolution number 21-2122, approving the formation of the Tuscan Water District for the purpose of implementing the Vina Groundwater Sustainability Plan. And as the sign says, which way do you want to go? That concludes my presentation. I'm open to any questions, Mr. Chair.
Let's see if anybody on the commission or any of the alternates have any questions of the staff concerning the presentation so far this morning. Seeing none.
I do have a question. This is alternate
You
Lucero.
need to identify yourself, please.
This is alternate Lucero.
Good.
Okay. It was back on slide power services and functions and the emphasis on chapter 33, talking about moving groundwater out of Butte County. It does not seem to address what is currently happening, and that is in lieu pumping and sending water down the Sacramento River or other waterways. And I was just wondering, that was written in what is now almost 30 years ago. And we have different situations that are occurring. And so while I hear all of these safeguards, what is concerning to me is we're also talking about, well, that'll be up to the GSA, and many of these same players have great influence on the GSA. So I just really wanted to make the comments on the record that I have concerns about chapter 33 being able to perform as a 30-year-old law, which the Board of Supervisors is going to look at, but there is in lieu pumping going on and water being sent south. Apparently it doesn't meet the criteria of chapter 33 under the legal definition of getting a sale of water, because they may not be selling water, but they may be getting tax credits or other in-kind kind of benefit. But chapter 33 doesn't cover that. And then I'm hearing that this is going to be an open and public agency and subject to elections. And as long as I've been on the Board of Supervisors, which hasn't been a long time, but only 3 years, I've only seen one election of any special district occur. And just recently, the Reclamation District number 833, which was initially formed in 1921 under the State Reclamation Act, the last time they had an actual election was in 2002, I believe. Mostly elections just do not occur. And the reason is that many special districts simply say it's too costly to hold elections. And therefore they have their attorneys write a letter and people are just simply appointed. So I have concerns that while this and while the staff has done an excellent job in pointing out all of the safeguards that are in place as a public agency, that we see here in Butte County, that many of the people that are sitting on these boards happen to be the same people sitting on the other boards. And again, chapter 33 being a protection, there is some question even by our own legal counsel as to how effective that is, and any kind of change to that law would have to go back to the people because it was established by the people. So there are some concerns there. So I just wanted, I guess I don't really have questions. I just wanted to point out, the only question is really, what about in lieu pumping? That's not really mentioned. And
One of the reasons that I tried to limit these questions were for the staff report. You've raised several policy issues which were way outside the scope of this district. But just quickly, it's pretty clear that the conditions that have been presented by the staff would preclude the district from transporting water outside the district by any means. And so that's
well,
what it
that's
said.
right. Well, but I'm asking about the in lieu pumping. So in other words, there's other ways to get water out of our county. You can send it down the river and then you can pump.
Well, but that, what has that got to do with the district?
Well, because you are banking all of your safeguards on that no water is going to be going south, but there is other ways to utilize groundwater or to get at groundwater by simply doing in lieu pumping, which isn't mentioned. And that was my question to Mr. Lucas.
All right, I don't think the question is
Through the
relevant.
chair, could I say
Okay.
something? I mean, it's hard to sit here and listen to this all the time. I'm telling you. In lieu pumping occurs when you have surface water rights and you apply for a permit and you export your surface water. Then you in lieu pump and grow crops. But generally what happens is people fallow land. It isn't applicable to a groundwater district at all. They don't have any surface water. So I don't know where this get, and as far as chapter 33, if we need to change it, we need to do that in a different forum because this is LAFCO.
Okay, well, I do, that there are surface rights holders within the Vina subbasin. So I just want to point that out because they couldn't send water down the Sacramento River as surface water if they didn't have riparian rights. So there are landowners within the district who have surface water rights. Again, thank you for allowing me to comment.
So just,
Okay, well, I wanted to, I mean, there'll be plenty of times for comments when and if we get this matter before a vote. But are there any questions of the staff concerning with present? I want to move this forward so that we can have other people speak. Seeing,
I have one. Speak up again. I mean, I've been doing this 17 years. I sat on state LAFCO. I've never seen, before everybody speaks, I've never seen a larger misdirection of actually what's happening here. It's amazing to me that there's been so much fear mongering and made up stuff that just isn't applicable to any common sense I've ever seen. And then the attacks on Mr. Lucas. I know him to be a man of integrity. He has nothing to gain here. He's 27 years at LAFCO, 10 years at Cal LAFCO. He's 6 years at Cal LAFCO executive officer, and he's 10 years on the legislative board of Cal LAFCO, which I serve on. I'll be chairman of it next year. I find him a man of principle and integrity, and I just don't enjoy reading all this attack on that. And I just want to go on record to defend him. And I don't see what he has to benefit from any of this. That's the other thing. Why would he, these things he's being accused of, why would he do it? He has no benefit. He isn't a farmer, rancher, or landholder. And so I just wanted to speak up to you, Mr.
well,
Lucas.
okay, let me just say, let's try to structure what we're doing as tight as we can to get things done. Okay, any questions of the staff? Questions?
So, Mr. Chair, during the presentation, you're asking us if we have any further questions concerning the presentation at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I recall that Mr. Lucas indicated early on in the presentation about the the input that was received since the date of the staff report. And he was prepared to address those as well, but I didn't hear that as part of the presentation per se. The other letters that came in after the fact that we all have copies of. Am I correct on that?
I have not covered all of them now.
Right. When do you intend to do that?
I can do it whenever the commission prefers, or you can take public comment, and when we close that, I can explain all the mechanics that go to it.
Okay.
How do you wish to proceed?
Let's take public comment, and then I can go back and circle back to those comments. There may be some crossover.
Okay. All right.
Just a quick procedural question to Mr. Lucas. The proponents of this water district, you said, had sent a letter requesting the change in 16F, correct?
Correct, sir.
And at what point will we do that? Will that be an amendment to the original motion, or how will we do that?
So should you get to a point where you make a motion to approve, then you will also tell me those amendments that you would like to change within the resolution, which the resolution contains the conditions. So at that point, you could suggest that condition then be amended to such. That would then be the amendment, that would then be the resolution you would be voting on for today. So no different than the Board of Supervisors who gets last minute request, and then you modify that resolution right there on the spot. And that's it. So that's
Okay.
how we would deal with it.
All right, thank you.
I have a follow-up question. This is Deborah Lucero again. As far as the new map with the M&T lands out, is that something then that will be forthcoming? I mean, it seems premature to vote on a map if we don't know exactly what those lines are. I know you gave the APN numbers. I'm just curious about that, how that is handled.
Routinely, as we has done over the last 20
Steve, you need to speak up a little bit. Your voice is a little muffled through that mask.
So we will do what LAFCO has always done in the 27 years, is that we will address those issues, and with annexations that we have done in the past, people ask to be removed. We put it on the record, they're removed. The map then becomes amended as an administrative process after the fact. And that map then becomes the official map. So in the case of the two parcels to be removed, you would simply say, we are going to adopt this project as the map is shown, with the exclusion of parcel A and parcel B. And then that map will be amended before it goes forth to the protest proceedings and eventually to the election. It does
Okay,
not
and-
require.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then I just have a follow-up question to Supervisor Kimmelshu's question. And that is, did LAFCO legal counsel look at what other water districts are doing in terms of owning recharged water?
Well, I would say that the answer to that question is it wasn't a matter of looking at what other districts are doing. The legal parameters are that recharged water is owned by the owner of the surface water that was used to recharge. As you've seen, there are considerable conditions included here that would prevent any transfer of that water after it had been used for recharge outside of the basin.
For our record, you ought to identify yourself.
Oh, sorry. I'm Marcia Birch. I'm here filling in for Scott Brown. And I did look at this issue.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Please sit down. Please sit down. Would you please sit down? I'm going to try and keep this as orderly as possible. I want the members of the commission to have an opportunity to ask whatever questions they have. We're going to have plenty of time. I'm going to take all the time that's necessary for the public to ask all. If it takes more time, that's what we will do. But I want to do it in an orderly fashion. And I don't want people jumping up. I don't want people jumping up and interrupting the meeting. You're out of order. Okay. Are there any other questions by the members of the commission, of the staff's report? Okay, we will now move forward. Now, as I understand it, Mr. Lucas, the next item that you have is is a presentation from the applicant.
So I have asked them to not prepare an actual presentation, but they will utilize their 3-minute opportunities to speak.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and LAFCO commissioners. My name is Tovi Giesentanner, and I'm a spokesman person for the Tuscan Water District. I wanted to quickly mention 3 things. First, on behalf of the petitioners and supporters who are here today, we wanted to let you know that we have appreciated the professionalism and work that Steve, Shannon, and other LAFCO staff have put into processing the application. It's been a fair process, and we've appreciated their willingness to be firm, direct, and yet helpful. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we've reviewed the staff report and conditions, and aside from what we believe to be relatively minor revision to 16F, we're on the same page with staff and accept the staff report as written. Number 3, we've provided the majority of our public comments back on December 2nd at the informational hearing. We'll have a few speakers today, but in lieu of another round of 50 to 60 speakers, repeating much of what was said back then, we've decided to ask our supporters to attend the hearing and simply wear stickers showing their support for the Tuscan Water District. As you know, we've been at this for more than 5 years, and we're excited to finally be at a decision point. Of course, if you have any questions during the course of your deliberations today, we'll be happy to respond and provide additional information. Thank you very much.
Okay. The floor will now be open. I have in front of me a stack of people who act to participate publicly. And I will call those names in the order that I receive them, assuming I can get them organized here again. Good. Okay, and the first one is Priscilla Hanford.
And I'm going to be somewhat repetitive to what I said at the very first LAFCO hearing. At that time, if you recall, I said I could not accept the application as submitted. I would wait and see about the development of conditions. Being a fan of the LAFCO process and wanting to echo the commendations to an outstanding staff, and also hello to my former neighbor, Marcia Leach Birch. I was sitting in her attorney today. And I want to say, I've read a lot. And my daughter was laughing, saying, Mom, you can't stay out of water, can you? Having served 8 years on the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the Water Commission that drafted Chapter 33. I feel very strongly about this issue. I feel very regretful that the issue caused such polarization. I have worked with environmentalists. I have worked with agriculture. I have great respect on both sides of participants in this process, but I do bewail the fact that it has become so volatile. I stand before you now to say, having read the conditions and having met personally with staff to further pursue questions of my own, that I stand in support of this formation with the conditions as proposed by staff. Thank you very much. And I want to add one thing. Any effectiveness of this move forward depends on opening ourselves to a degree of trust that has been in all too short supply in all our local, national, and global situations today. Please open yourselves to trust.
The next speaker is Amy Raymond.
Thank you for the opportunity. Would it be possible to show the PowerPoint? Okay. I'm here in opposition to the Tuscan Water District. I believe that you are empowering the very corporation that's central to overdrafting the Vina subbasin here. Farmland Reserve has 21,000 acre feet of diversions, and this is in the public record. They have 127,000 acre feet of surface water diversions in the state of California. They own over 330 parcels of ag land within California. Farmland has a surface water diversion on the Sacramento River at the end of Wilson Landing Road that's allocated for almost 20,000 acre feet per year of surface water that's been historically used to irrigate tomatoes in that area. And in that surface water, when I brought that up at the last meeting, I've heard that Farmland says, well, those pumps are out of the water. Well, there's pictures that will show you that those pumps are thoroughly in the water. Those pumps are there. They're still electrified. The ditches are all still there. So Farmland is now claiming conjunctive use of 5,000 acre feet. And so they're allowed 20,000 acre feet. So by Water Code Section 1011, they're allowed to sell, transfer that water. So they have 20,000 acre feet of surface water. They're claiming they use 5,000 acre feet. There's 15,000 acre feet per year that's going down the Sac River that they're entitled to sell. So you tell me how these conditions prevent that. I don't see in the conditions where that water is protected and that basin is only overdraft by 10,000 acre feet. So we can look at the overdraft and the history of the overdraft in that area, and it's down 10 feet. And it starts overdrafting when that area started to get planted with nut trees back in the late 70s. So my point is, your conditions don't cover everything out there. We have just seen the conditions. There's not been public debate about the conditions. We're counting on LAFCO, and they're doing their best effort to put those conditions together. But there needs to be a debate about those conditions. So we're still here because while we want to trust them, the fundamental problem is this is a landowner voter district. They could have solved this with a water reclamation district. They could have solved it by forming an irrigation district. You're going to solve that because the conditions allow farmland to ship 15,000 acre feet down the Sac River for their use to sell or transfer at their own whim. And this is just farmland. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Mark Kearns.
Commissioners, good morning. My name is Mark Kearns, and I'm here to talk about some fundamentals. Water is a natural resource. It comes from the sky. It comes from underground springs. The point being is that water is not owned by anyone unless they are politically given permission to own that water. The water is essentially owned by the public. And the problem I have with the Tuscan Water District is that it allows large landowners to have an undue influence over what I'll call the Tuscan Water District Board. It gives one vote for each acre of land owned. And that's not the way things should be. When this country was founded, the founders originally considered limiting voting to only people who owned property. And and they rejected that. The founders rejected that. But that's essentially what we have here. And that means that the large landowners, given one vote per acre, will dominate whatever agency is in charge of the Tuscan Water Board. And I think it's just human nature, and I think we've all had experience with this, that those who are given power will use that power. And often they will use that to their own benefit to the exclusion of other people. So the reason I'm opposing the Tuscan Water District is that voting on what to do with the water should be given to the entire voting population and not just and not to be heavily weighted in favor of large landowners. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
The next speaker is Pam Stusser.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. My name is Pam Stoser, and I am opposed to the formation of the Tuscan Water District for many of the same reasons that have already been.
Ms. Stusser, excuse me, your voice is very soft. If you could
Oh,
just speak up.
I'm sorry. Is this better?
That's much
Okay.
better. Thank you.
Okay. I'm in opposition of this formation of the Tuscan Water District for a lot of the same reasons that you've already heard. There's just an overarching vision I have of sort of an ag coup going on with the water. And everybody's talking about this water as if it belongs to this district, that it doesn't come from somewhere else or go anywhere else, that it's just here in the hands of this district. And this water is a public resource. It belongs to all of us, and we all should have something to say about it. The control and these conditions that are being put forward, I look at this as sort of a vertical organization, beginning with the AGUBC, Tuscan Water District proponents, the Board of Supervisors, two sitting right here on this board. Then we have the GSA, another member on the GSA sitting on this board here, LAFCO. And it's all vertical. All the same people are making the decisions. I mean, this isn't really a fair process or a public process. I mean, it's very private. It's just condensed to very few decision makers. And the naivete that I see in this whole process is that for people to think they can manipulate Mother Nature. Mother Nature is always going to win. We see it now. It rains when it wants to rain. She's dry when she wants to be dry. We don't have any control over that, no matter what we do. And so we need to respect Mother Nature with all of this that we're talking about.
The next speaker is Colleen Cecil.
Good morning, Chair Leverins, fellow commissioners. My name is Colleen Cecil, and I'm the Executive Director of the Butte County Farm Bureau. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Finally, that's how we feel. That's how the ag community in Butte County feels about today. Finally, that we're in this room, and that's why this room is packed today with Tuscan Water District supporters, because the support for the Tuscan Water District in Butte County is overwhelming. The organization which I represent, the Butte County Farm Bureau, wholeheartedly supports the formation of this organization, of this district, as well as many other local organizations as provided to you in the application, as well as all of the neighboring water districts in this county. They too support the formation of the Tuscan Water District. And that support is overwhelming because the Tuscan Water District is the best solution for ensuring sustainability of the Vina Basin. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the Sigma Law. You've probably read it a time or two since 2015 when it was put in place. The Sigma Law encourages local management. It's the cornerstone of the law, if you ask me. And the grassroots work that has taken place over the last 5 years to get to this point is a perfect example of what the Sigma Law encouraged and intended. We very much appreciate your very thorough review and consideration of the Tuscan Water District formation application. We are appreciative of the staff Steve and the entire Butte LAFCO team for all of the work that they have done to get to this point today, and the very thorough discussion and explanation of all of every piece, which is very, very complex. But today we encourage you to approve the submitted application and support the formation of the Tuscan Water District. Thank you very much for your time.
Andrew Mendonça.
Mr. Chairman Leverance and LAFCO Commissioner members, I come before you today as a fourth generation farmer and a fifth generation Chico native, urging your support of the Tuscan Water District. My Chico roots run deep, just like our mighty Valley Oaks. My family's farm, Mendonça Orchards, has been in the nut growing business for 102 years now, growing to 600 farmed acres within the proposed district. We own and lease orchards that have been farmed by our family for multiple generations and generations of other families before that. On our farm and any other farm in the county, sustainability has always been a trendy word, before sustainable was even a trendy word at the grocery store. Without water, our 102-year-old livelihood will die. This is why we need the Tuscan Water District. There are over 75 other farming families with stories just like mine. Over 1,000 individuals representing 660 parcels, both ag and domestic. I have ag and domestic. Well users have signed petitions asking to be a part of the SGMA process. It is our goal simply to be proactive and involved, like the SGMA law states, so that we all can protect our families, our livelihoods, and our communities in the county. In closing, I would just like you all to remember that agriculture has been the backbone in our community since its beginning. John Bidwell, after he worked for General Sutter, settled and farmed in the Superior region for its multitude of natural resources. Many innovations regarding the almond and nut industries were created right here in our very own Butte County orchards. We all remember the slogan, Chico, where the nuts come from. With the approval of the Tuscan Water District, it is my family's hope that we can continue and Butte County can continue to carry on its mighty agricultural legacy for generations to come. We all appreciate your consideration and respectfully request that you support the formation of the Tuscan Water District. Thank you.
Marty Dunlap.
Good morning. I've spoken before in front of you, and so this is my maybe last time, who knows? Okay. I would say almost everyone in this room is concerned about groundwater in Butte County. I don't think this discussion today is if the Tuscan Water District is good or bad. And I don't think, or I really hope it's not about ag versus city dwellers. But for me, I think it has to do with fair representation, particularly in the governance structure. Right now, of course, 1 acre equals 1 vote. I think there's 2 vulnerable populations who are dependent on groundwater who aren't going to be adequately represented. The first one is the Chico residents. Who knows where the city of Chico is going to be weighing in or not? It seems like not so far. But the group I really want to speak to today are the residential domestic well users in our district, the Tuscan Water District. And looking at the data that was presented by Steve, which I think is very thorough, I read that 103 pages. 6,000 acres are representing the people who have less than or equal to 10 acres, which is approximately 6% of the Tuscan Water District acreage. The population in the district is about 6,500. The number of wells in the district is 3,121 estimated. That's 58% of the well owners in the district, but they only represent 6% of the acreage. So when we're talking about 1 vote equals 1 acre, That 48% of those domestic well owners who live in this district and are dependent on that groundwater are not represented. They won't be represented on the board of directors. So what are the protections for these people? I didn't really hear that in the conditions, but who's going to really represent them when they're harmed? If the water goes down below, who's going to be speaking on their behalf? So it's that percentage, 48%, who really aren't getting the representation because they're only 6% of the land, but they have 48% of the wells. Maybe it should be one well equals one vote. I don't know, but that is something to be thinking about. I also think that looking at the data that Mr. Lucas put together, he's encouraging the efficient provision of government services. And under that, he's talking about the determination that the affected landowners are being considered. I don't think this 48% are being thoroughly considered. Also, that public benefits are being considered under 5.2.7. Maybe not so much if we consider them to be part of the public. The second point that I think is important has to do with the budget, to do with the day-to-day operations. Obviously, the expertise in water falls under the LAFCO duties. The budget is really the day-to-day operations right now. At $10 an acre, that's going to mean that Deseret Farms is allegedly going to be paying $120,000 a year to support a budget that is functional so they can hire consultants, hydrologists, geologists, policymakers. I don't know if they are really playing all those numbers out. It's not in the budget, of course, it's represented because we don't know, but that is an issue. Lastly, what I want to say is that yes, trust is so important. And I've looked up trust and thought about it a lot since we've been meeting on this topic. And it has to do with trust is the union when intelligence and integrity come together. My intelligence says, are we getting good representation for all the people who are going to be affected by the decisions made by the Tuscan Water District? And my last one is, can conditions be modified in the future? It sounded like from what Steve was saying, they could be. And so what kind of protections do we have there that the conditions that are in place now may not be in place 10, 15, 20, 25 years from now? Thank you.
Les Herringer.
To speak. I was not planning on speaking today, but I did bring a letter over to give to our chairman of LAFCO because I was advised to do that. M&T Ranch is part of the Butte Subbasin. We farm southwest of Chico, and there was a couple parcels there that we wanted to make sure were still in the Butte Subbasin. That's why I brought the letter over, just to be quite clear. We certainly support the objective of the Tuscan Water District. We are all in favor of its implementation. We do have parcels that are going to be in the Tuscan Water District, and we have parcels that are going to remain in the Butte Subbasin. The Butte Subbasin, as you know, is not part of the Tuscan Water District. Now, the reason why we are in the Butte Subbasin is because we have surface water rights. The ranch has surface water rights. We get water out of both Butte Creek and we get water out of the Sacramento River. Those water rights go back well over 100 years. In fact, there was several Butte Creek water users last year that did a study on water losses to groundwater infiltration of Butte Creek water in our area and also Comanche Creek. Our water comes down Comanche Creek. We have a diversion just west of, or just east of Chico. And we discovered from Butte Creek all the way out to the ranch, 25% of the water we divert goes into Chico's groundwater basin. So we're losing 25% of the surface water we divert out of Butte Creek into Chico's aquifer. So we think that, you know, we are part of the solution here. All the surface water we divert out of the river, we have a diversion just west of Chico. We divert water down through our ranch down to Llano Seco. We supply all the water to the state and federal wildlife refuge on Llano Seco. A lot of that water also goes into the Butte groundwater basin. So we are part of the solution here. And, after the letter was read, I felt I needed to get up here and just kind of clarify our position because the whole letter was not read. It was just bits and pieces of it. And we are part of the solution here. We're recharging the groundwater subbasin in the South Chico, West Chico area. We're part of the solution. So that's why we wanted to be in the Butte subbasin, because we have plentiful surface water rights where we are, and we fight year after year to maintain those surface water rights to keep our tradition of 100-year-old diversions intact. So thank you for your time here, and thank you for your consideration. We are 100% in support of the. Thank you.
Let's see, Tasha Levenger. Oh, here she is. Okay.
Sorry, I was in the overflow. Just a couple of things.
You might want to pull the mic a little bit. There you go.
Yeah, couple of things. Yes, this is public hearing, but I don't know how much we are heard. This is the reference to this being a local control. It's not local control. It's landowner control, which is absentee landowners. They don't even need to be residents of the state. It's referred to as an opportunity rather than an option. If you're really doing a neutral report, your language has got to be a bit more neutral. The best things I have seen for Butte County always try to look to combining the interest of the salmon people, the conservationists, and agriculture. Don't weigh anyone too much. Give everyone combined, get them together, have them work together. We have formed powerful and wonderful alliances when we do this. This is giving all the power to agriculture, and I really am concerned about it for that very reason. If we somehow had it better apportioned, I could find myself supporting something like this. I cannot the way it is done. Thank you so much for your time.
Rich McGowan.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and LAFCO Commission members. Thank you for this opportunity today. I'm Rich McGowan, and I'm here representing the landowner petitioners for the Tuscan Water District. I'd like to take a moment and recognize and thank all of our petitioners and supporters in the audience who are here today to show support for Tuscan Water District. If you would please stand if you're a supporter of Tuscan Water District and show the commission.
Good call, Rich.
Thank you very much. We've been at this for more than 7 years. It all started back in 2015 with the help of former County Administrator Officer Paul Hahn, who submitted a letter of support to LAFCO stating, in my opinion, the formation of the district is a practical solution to coordinate and manage groundwater in such a large and currently unserved area. In 2017, we were thrilled when the Butte County Board of Supervisors passed a resolution which reads in part, Butte County will work constructively and cooperatively with landowners on the formation process of a new eligible local agency for involvement in SGMA issues. Later in 2019, the former director of County Water and Resource Conservation Department helped kickstart the process, again, by sending a letter of to farmers saying, quote, the water district would serve a critical role in providing surface water to existing groundwater dependent agricultural areas, unquote. Once the LAFCO process started in earnest last year, we were particularly pleased when both the Butte County Water Commission and Board of Supervisors affirmed their support for the formation of Tuscan Water District in comment letters to LAFCO. Tuscan Water District also has support from local, regional, and statewide agencies and organizations, from the local elected officials and Butte County Farm Bureau, Rock Creek Reclamation District, Durham Irrigation, to Northern California Water Association and California Farm Bureau, and many others. Strong support for the Tuscan Water District and its mission runs very deep in our community. Groundwater in Butte County, and particularly in Vina Subbasin, is essential for life and growth, for the food we eat, the families that we raise, and the regional economy it supports. Water is the lifeblood of agriculture. We're here today because we, the landowners and petitioners who support this effort, believe the Tuscan Water District is the only practical, reasonable, and logical solution to coordinate and manage groundwater and surface water in such a large, currently unserved area. Formation of the water district will benefit all landowners, domestic well users, and small, medium, and large farm. I repeat, small, medium, and large farms. It is a critical next step for the long-term preservation and protection of valuable agricultural land and rural lifestyles. We appreciate your consideration and respectfully request, after 5 years, that you support formation of the Tuscan Water District. Thank you very much.
Jamie Johansson.
Chairman and other LAFCO Commission members, I'm Jamie Johansson. I am a local. I'm a local farmer here in Oroville, even having served in these chambers for about 4 years. But today I stand before you with the honor of serving as president of the California Farm Bureau and a member of the Butte County Farm Bureau. I'm here today on behalf of the California Farm Bureau Federation to extend California Farm Bureau's strong support for the formation of the Tuscan Water District. Upon signing the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act back in 2014, Governor Brown stated groundwater management in California is best accomplished locally. The formation of the Tuscan Water District will ensure that agricultural and domestic groundwater users in the Vina Subbasin have a seat at the table and are part of the discussion and decision-making process for Butte County's groundwater future. Excuse me. As a special district, they will also be in a position to act quickly and efficiently in pursuing the best possible management options of their own unique local challenges. We're also encouraged that the proposed district has broad-based local support for these efforts and their efforts. Water is the lifeblood of farming. Tuscan Water District aims to fill a gap in ground and surface water management in the region. For these reasons, we strongly support formation. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide comments. And I would remind you, in Governor Newsom's 2020 water resilience portfolio, he was clear. Support local implementation however possible. And where basin managers are unable or unwilling to implement the law, exercise appropriate enforcement. By forming this district, you ensure that these meetings continue to happen locally and not in Sacramento. Thank you.
Jeff Carter.
Commissioners, Jeff Carter. My family and I own acreage in the proposed district. So I don't shock you. You may wish to grasp the armrests on your chairs. We own 65 acres. But obviously, I feel akin to an owner of one share of IBM appearing at a shareholders meeting of the IBM shareholders. I'm not even the flea on the back of the landowners here today. Nonetheless, our 65 acres are dependent upon a single well, and the best thing I can say is to get to the point. And I just talked to Mr. McGowan out in the lobby. And I have worked with many of the promoters, Darren and Alan, Ed, for years to look after the best interests of groundwater users in Butte County. And I do know that their heart is in the right place. Obviously, as one shareholder, I would like to make certain that there are minority shareholder protections in place for those similarly situated as I am. The largest category of the acreage breakdown is represented by parcels consisting of 40 to 2,761 acres. And within that category, that accounts for 75.74% of the acreage that's going to be in the district. So the thing that I took heart in were the remarks of Mr. Lawrence, and that is that the divisions, and Mr. McGowan has assured me, the divisions are going to assure that there is a representation of smaller parcels such as my parcel through the makeup of the divisions. And I believe that if I'm right, Steve, that you said that within 6 months, the applicant will be coming back. I would suggest, just to make certain that we have minority rights protected, that as a condition of approval, that LAFCO look at that breakdown of the divisions and make certain that that those divisions, as they are devised, come before LAFCO for final, before this project is finally approved, to make certain that we do have a majority rule and minority representation. That's all I would say. Thank you very much.
Peter Peterson.
Chairman Leverins, members of the commission. By way of history, I'm proud to say I was the first chairman of Butte County's Water Commission. And during that time, Butte County was having lots of controversy. The wells in Durham were going dry. The water in south of Butte Creek was being exported. Lots and lots of problems. And during that time, there were several entities that were formed. And the Sutter Butte Basin Groundwater User Association, the Butte County Well Spacing Agreement, and the Butte County Water Department. And Butte County led the way with the formation of that water department. We were ahead of every county in the state. And Butte County's invested lots and lots of money in it. And they know what's out there and what's under the ground. And so they're well equipped to do this, to tackle this. But in speaking with the supervisors, each of them that are here today, I get the impression that they believe, and maybe rightfully so, that the task before us needs to be handled by the people on the ground. So I support that. The part that I have trouble with, and it was not the intention, that the governance of this entity or whatever future entity was to be formed would be in the hands of the people that own the land. And the way this, as it stands today, and just what I hear from the room, control of this whole basin is in the hands of 3 landowners. 1 acre, 1 vote. You've heard the acreages, and I don't think that serves the purpose of Butte County. And so you've heard all the same arguments, but dealing with that, and I don't know how you deal with it, because that's a right of a California Water District. It's set up that it's 1 acre, 1 vote. And you've got thousands of other people in Butte County that I think you need to represent. And I don't know how you get around it. That's not my job. I retired a long time ago. So thank you for your attention.
Ed McLaughlin.
Chairman and Commissioners, I just want to, first of all, start off by really thanking your staff. They have been tremendous to work with. I served on LAFCO a long time ago. And my real interest in local government's been water, all the way back to Chapter 33. And what really concerns me is that they've tried to turn an oasis in the San Joaquin Valley, a desert, into an oasis and they're after our water even now. So I think we need to lock the door, which I think this effort will do. Specifically, we were asked as landowners to come up with a plan because the county didn't have the resources and finances to actually take on this effort. And as Mr. Peterson just alluded to, Butte County has been a leader in water for the last 50 years. First having a water department, having a water commission to make policy and recognize that this is the most critical resource, not just to agriculture, to homeowners, to the environment. And I think today you have an opportunity to make a historic decision. It would be legendary, the fact that we can actually determine our own destiny and not end up with a mess like the San Joaquin Valley. I got a picture right here. You can see the subsidence. This was 1925 ground level. Down here is ground level in 1977, and it's lost 20 feet since then. So that's how bad it can get. We don't want subsidence. We don't want to make the same mistakes that they've made. And I think it's incumbent upon us as landowners to represent all the people and protect the resource in our industry. I'm proud to be a farmer. I've been involved in water for about 35, 40 years, helped with Chapter 33. And I think we've made a lot of progress in keeping water from being exported out of county. And our goal is to not have one drop leave the county. I hate even water sales. And Chapter 33 has pretty much put the brakes on that. At one time, they mentioned the historic problem we had in '87 or so when water was sold, wells were drilled so you could have your cake and eat it too, which I was very critical of, which resulted in Chapter 33. And this is another step, I think, to protect the integrity of our county community and our industry, which I top Mr. Kimmelshoe. He always has a quote from some past president. And I'm saying today's your opportunity to, as Mr. President Kennedy said, to ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Well, I just take the R out of it and say, ask not what your county can do for you, but what you can do for your county. Thank you.
Jane Dolan.
Good morning. Not used to being on this side. My name is Jane Dolan. I would not be within this district, but I support it. I wanted to stand up here today to tell you that I completely and wholeheartedly agree with the remarks of Priscilla Hanford, one of my idols, for someone who analyzes, researches, looks at all sides, and concludes with what is the best choice for the public and the citizens of this county. When I did serve on the Board of Supervisors, and only one of my colleagues is left, we decided that we wanted to move the issue of water, its management, and addressing the real concerns that had been unaddressed for a century, to move it into the 20th century. I think that this district, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and the advocacy and interest of all parties in this county are bringing us into the 21st century, because the issues that we must address are large.
Well, I want to highlight some of the things that do exist in this county so that people are not so concerned about power hungry farmers here. In the 80s and the 90s, we created the Department of Water and Resource Conservation. We did not choose to and could not really, in my opinion, choose to create a water agency. We created the Water Commission, an open body of citizens for people to work with to address policy concerns. We developed policies and regulations, and we asked the voters to put them in the charter. And it is only the voters that can change those charter requirements. I don't fear this district. I know and respect these landowners. I grew up with many of them, and I have to say in some cases with their fathers and mothers. They cannot avoid the state, the SIGMA law, the laws, the sustainable groundwater management laws. They cannot ignore the groundwater sustainability agencies. They cannot ignore the Public Meeting Act requirements of the state of California and the county of Butte, and they cannot ignore their neighbors. I respect them and I trust them. And I think that finally, after 20 years, the Board of Supervisors, 30 years, the Board of Supervisors said, you groundwater dependent agricultural folks need to stand up and show some leadership. So I think that they have, and I support them. Thank you.
That completes the public participation cards. That means you're up, Mr. Harriman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the commission. My name is Richard Harriman. I'm speaking this morning on behalf of the public interest. I'm also speaking on behalf of the Northern California Environmental Defense Center. And I'd like to take a key from Mr. Peterson, and I'm hoping that my tone is the tone that I would like to see as we discuss something of this importance. I have submitted to the staff, and you should have a copy of it, a letter by Bob Braitman. And Bob Braitman is one of the deans of the LAFCO community in this state who's been involved for over 50 years. He's very, very well respected. If you look at his CV, he's a consultant. He has served many, many LAFCOs statewide. He has reviewed the documents and submitted the letter of January 31, which I trust Mr. Lucas received. And what Mr. Braitman says in his letter, and he's reluctant to be critical of Mr. Lucas because it's the same reason I am, because it's not personal. It's about following the law. And that's why I'm glad that Ms. Birch is here today, because my focus and presentation this morning is to focus on the legal requirements where you do not have broad discretion, contrary to the staff report. Mr. Braitman's conclusion is based on the foregoing omissions and after reviewing the Butte LAFCO rules and procedures, it appears the process that has been utilized by the LAFCO staff does not comply with statutorily required procedures or the commission's own rules and procedures.
Mr. Harriman, let me just stop you right there.
No, Mr. Chairman, you're not going to interrupt me.
I'm
I
don't
want to be interrupted, sir. Let me complete.
You're out of order. I'm going to stop you for a second because I'm familiar with, I knew Mr. Braitman worked with him with Cal LAFCO. The point that I wish you to focus on, as I read, you're making a statement here that Mr. Braitman, as a matter of law, has made that determination. And I'm saying that's not the way he has written this at all. And I'm challenging you because I would like some law. You're the one that's supposedly informed about this. The point is that following the procedures and public interest and so on, that can be a subjective determination. And he finishes, and I'm looking right at the letter, where he says, rather than create a water district, which will overlap existing water agencies, LAFCO should consider having some of the existing water. So, he's not indicating for any reason that creation of this district is somehow violating any law. And so that's the representation you just made. And
You
I
know,
want you
excuse
to
me,
focus on-
this is an alternate. Why are we interrupting public testimony? Chair? Respectively. I thought that public testimony was able to be given and then it can be rebutted. But can't we allow public testimony?
I'm attempting to focus our discussion here. I'm intend to give Mr. Harriman all the time he desires. But I think we need to focus on what we're here about today as to whether or not, as a matter of law, we're entitled to proceed. We've been advised both by the applicant and their attorneys and our own attorney, and in review of Mr. Bateman's and Mr. Harriman's over the last several months, raising the same things. And I just want to make sure that we haven't forgotten anything, because as of right now, I haven't seen anything that would indicate to me that we're breaking the law.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to hear that you're going to return my 3 minutes to me, man.
Oh, yeah, no, you take whatever time you want.
I was hoping you would say that. Mr. Braitman has taught these classes. He's not a lawyer, he acknowledges that. But if you look at his CV, he has taught environmental law classes for bar credits for UC Berkeley, UC Davis, UCLA, University of California, Santa Barbara, UC Riverside Extensions, and Cal State University, Fresno. No, he's not a lawyer, but as you say, he's very, very
No,
knowledgeable.
I've worked with him. I've worked with him for years. I know him.
Finish. Mr. Chairman, I think it's inappropriate for you to interrupt the witnesses as a lawyer, Mr. Leverins.
Proceed.
You know better than to do that here in public.
Well, you had no trouble interrupting the meeting a minute ago.
Yeah. It's the only way I can get heard, Mr. Chairman, and I was trying to keep this.
Well, you got the floor now, but I think you need to focus on the legalities.
The legalities have been dealt with in my written submissions. The sections are cited there if your counsel has reviewed it. You know, Mr. Leverins, very well as an attorney that I have to make the public record. I made the public record in writing. I've appeared before. I've made the public record that way. We've submitted it. We have made the public
Well, and
record here
your
today.
letter-
Now, so.
Your letter
no,
and Mr. Braitman's
sir,
letter
if I-
are part of the public record.
Correct. And so is the other attachments to my letter. So the record has been made, sir, and I decline to debate you on it. It's in the record. That's the reason I'm here and speaking with you. Let me cover some of the other points I'd like to make, if I can, to address the issues before your commission today for the record. If you look at Mr. Lucas's report, one of the things that he omits in discussing the budget is he just fails to disclose that there is going to be a reimbursement to the parties who have carried the water and the mail and paid the bills here. That's not disclosed in his report. It's not disclosed in the public record that that has been available that I've looked at for the last 5 or 6 months. The other thing that Mr. Braitman's letter does, and where I was trying to be calm and focused and address you as quasi-legislative officers, including Mr. Kimmelshoe, who I have great respect for, but who I think has a conflict of interest and should at least disclose the letter that was supposed to be provided to the council for LAFCO. And I'll ask Ms. Birch whether that letter is going to be made available to the public. But the point here is that Mr. Braitman's letter focuses on what is a reasonable opportunity and a reasonable alternative within the framework of the resolution 17170. He brings to the attention of this commission that the United Water Conservation District in the county of, Ventura County, that was formed for the very reason that they were unable to address subsidence and they needed to have some other ways of taking care of business there. They did not form a California water district. They formed one which was respectful of all of the rights of the people there. And there was access to that district. And it is one that could be used by these applicants. And if it were suggested, it should be considered by this board. The other issue that I want to address in Mr. Lucas's report that I think is deficient is his discussion of what the growth inducement impacts are or the development impacts are of this particular organization that's being proposed. What he has failed to describe to this commission and not disclosed in the public record is the history of attempts to try to develop on the west side of the city of Chico. There was an application by Pacific Realty that was entertained, and I suspect Supervisor Dolan recalls it because it's on the west side of the Green Line, and it was rejected. And this staff report is delinquent in not addressing the potential development impact of this particular proposal, which envisions the creation of infrastructure for water purveyance. It's in their applications. It's been disclosed that they intend to look for more water and to bring it in. They're going to create infrastructure in the ground west of the Green Line. They're going to have it in an area between the Sacramento River and the city of Chico.
Not true, not true.
Excuse me, sir.
That's not true. None of that's true. I represent.
No,
Pacific
let,
Realty
let,
Associates.
let Mr. Harriman speak.
Okay, fine, but I'm just, for the record,
Could we have the speaker's name identified?
Les Herringer, M&T Ranch, Pacific Realty.
Mr.
Associates.
Please be quiet.
I'm saying that whether it's Pacific Realty that made it or not, it's the same facts apply, that there is infrastructure that's going to be developed here and is going to have potential development impact in the county as a matter of the public interest. Finally, it seems to me as though what Mr. Braitman's recommendation to this commission is that this be remanded to staff to have them redo the application, which should have been done as required by the rules of procedure that I cited in the public record. And that's what we would request that you do. Thank you for the opportunity to present and make my comments.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? All right, we're going to close this portion of the public hearing, and we're going to take about a 10-minute break. People's eyes are watering. And so we'll try to get back here about 10 after. Get settled in. Thank you. We'll go back on the record. We're at a point where we have some I think mechanical issues as far as what had been said by the staff as it relates to the two items that are before us. One is the proposed resolution, which is one of the options that we have. And the other, as part of those resolutions, is the conditions. That's exhibit F, I believe. The resolution is exhibit H to the report, and yeah, exhibit F is the conditions of approval. And so, Steve, I'm going to ask that if you could indicate to the commission, you had referenced that there needs to be some cleanup primarily to the resolution. Could you amplify that for us?
Mr. Chair, could I ask one question of Steve before we proceed? Because there was one thing that kind of was relevant that I think there's a misconception. Would you clear up how the voting is going to occur within the district? I know that we discussed making it very fair. So could you put that in the public record, how the voting will be in the district in the future?
Yes, sir. So the first vote on formation will be formed at an at-large vote, and it will be based on acreage owned. That's the water code's requirement, and we cannot deviate from that requirement. Subsequently, we have a condition that requires the TWD to return to LAFCO and present a map that demonstrates 9 divisions within the district. They will present that as they draw it up. The commission, sitting in the authority over that map, has the ability to amend that map and create the divisions in the manner in which you feel is safe, equitable, and reasonable. And I'll be very clear, and this is not anything I have not shared with the proponents many times over, is the point of this is to create as much equity as we can within the structure of a landowner voter district. And the way we do that is we create 9 divisions. And for instance, if you have one 10,000 acre owner, we hear this a lot, that there's 2 large owners that are going to control everything. They stay in one division. On the southern end, you have another large landowner. They're in one division. They would be able to exercise all of their votes only within that division, meaning that out of a 9-member board, the 2 largest landowners could only control through their own votes 2 out of 9 seats on that board. So right off the bat, the idea that 2 large landowners are going to control everything is seriously debunked by that particular way of dividing up the district. Now, I'm not saying that's the only way. We can also look at the parameters within those divisions and say, is there an area where we have a lot of domestic wells, say on the west side of Chico? We could put them in a division, which would enhance their ability to put a small domestic well owner from that division onto the board. I can go through the mix, but you can see by divisions, you effectively mitigate anybody taking control, 1 or 2 or 3 large landowners, from controlling a majority of the seats on the board. They will always be in a minority position. Does that answer your question, Mr. Connolly?
I need some clarification. I just want to make sure that I understand. So if the commission approves the resolution and the conditions, the initial election of the board members would be pursuant to the water code, which would be straight vote based upon acreage. But then as a condition, the district has to come back to LAFCO, at which point we can reestablish different rules for those 9 districts. I'll stop right there. Is that correct?
we have the ability to establish those districts within reason. We cannot be prejudicial as to the components or the individual makeup of any individual
No, I
person.
understand, but we can draw lines that would, and as I understood it, reading somewhere, and I think this is accurate, that the proponents are also prepared, or were prepared anyway, to make sure that at least one small landowner was a director.
The water code does not allow the provision of just isolating out one small landowner as a criteria. The water code does not provide the criteria or the characteristic of the voter. It is
So
simply.
we
a
can't
land-
impose that.
No, sir, I do not
Okay.
believe.
So, but we can draw small districts that would in effect isolate large landowners to only vote in that district,
Yes, sir.
which would allow other districts but still the larger landowners in those districts would still be able to control to some extent what happened.
I would expect so.
Okay. Also, just for clarification, because there seemed to be some confusion, as long as we're talking about mechanics. We have a legal staff, independent. Those of you that don't know, LAFCO is totally independent. We are not subject to county staff people and so on. We have our own legal department, and they're very competent lawyers out of Nevada City. And they have reviewed everything we've done, right up into including the last minute letters that we got from Mr. Harriman and Mr. Braitman, and all of the material that we've seen. Is that correct?
That is correct. Mr. Brown, of course, was involved from the very beginning and has reviewed everything, including what we have received recently. And I have reviewed everything through the preparation of the staff report, all of the late comments, everything that was received from the staff report until today, I have reviewed, including the letters from Mr. Harriman and Mr. Braitman.
Okay, thank you. Now, so looking at now the options that we have as a commission, the first option being the option number one, in assuming that that's will generate whatever discussion we want to do, it would be appropriate to move forward. But before we do that, are there any general questions about procedure that any of the commissioners have, alternates or otherwise? Okay, moving forward, it would be appropriate to have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal as submitted with the minor changes you'd mentioned. Adopt environmental findings as shown in the draft resolution. My glasses on here. Move to adopt resolution number 21-2021/22, approving the formation of the Tuscan Water District for the purpose of implementing the Vina groundwater sustainability plan.
All right, is there a second?
Are there any amendments to that?
Chair Leverance, I'd just like to clarify that the resolution number is 11-2021-22.
Okay, it's incorrect in the part of the report I'm looking at. Sorry.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion to approve the resolution. Now, that resolution would also, just for clarification, approve the conditions of approval, which is Exhibit F.
All included.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure, because as I understand it, there may be, the staff has a recommended, so before we have discussion, I think we need to call on the staff now to determine what recommended amendment to the resolution the staff is now making.
Okay, thank you, sir. They're relatively mild. I will refer you to attachment H, which is your resolution. And if you were to go to attachment H, section 2, it's lettered and the letter is J that you're looking for.
Again, what was,
And the subject is landowners proposing and willing to fund. It's about funding. It's at the top of the page.
Give me a page number, please.
oh, I'm over to, yeah, here we go. Okay, good.
Roll by it.
What it currently reads is the two water districts, Shandon, and the bottom line was it was some typos, some clerical error there where some stranded language was left in the report. That sentence should now say the Tuscan Water District could bring, and everything between that starts with the letter number 2 or the spelled out word 2 is struck out through the end of the $500,000 parentheses. Everything else in that stays the same. That was inadvertent language that ended up in there, and I apologize for that. 16 times through it, and I think I'd catch everything.
I'll accept that on my motion.
Okay.
All right, accept that as a second.
Yes.
Okay, any other changes that you're recommending?
Yeah, so in your, again, in your attachment H, which is your resolution, there's a section that starts with number 3, section 3, conditions adopted by LAFCO. If you read through the headings on the 4th page in, you'll see general powers and functions, starting with condition 16. And they show 16A through G. What I had failed to put in, but are in the conditions in F, are conditions 17A, B, and C, which were clearly described in the staff report and clearly described in attachment F of the conditions. For better or for worse, I just failed to transport those into the resolution. That was an error on my part. But those were a part of this process and discussed as such throughout. So we would then amend the resolution to add a section starting with number 17, A through C, as described in the conditions in attachment F.
I'll accept that.
That concern exists. Yes, sir.
I'll accept that as a motion maker.
Yeah, I'll accept.
And then finally, we have the alternate condition 16F that was requested by the applicants that dealt with the ownership of groundwater. If you recall that discussion, is my recommendation is that we alter that language to reflect it, which was delivered to you today. That alternate language would then remove that condition because it's staff's belief, and if the commission agrees, that that is an issue that is most appropriately left up to the GSA to ultimately determine the disposition of how groundwater recharge occurs within the basin, and not a LAFCO position to determine that. We're simply saying then through that condition, TWD, if you engage in groundwater recharge, you're going to have to follow the rules of the GSA. And that is the only way by which you're going to be able to do that. And if the GSA decides at that point, whether ownership or no ownership, whatever they look at, everybody, not just Tuscan, everybody in the basin is going to be stuck with that same approach. So what I'm really trying to do here is make sure that we don't get out in front of the GSA and improperly penalize this district in a way that in the future, others may not. And the safest way to do that is to say what we remove that language about ownership and let that decision be made by the GSA as they move forward.
So F is gone.
So F is going to be rewritten. Mr. Leverance has the actual language in front of him, but I'm going to read it to you. So F now will read, any and all proposals or projects proposed by the Tuscan Water District, including groundwater recharge projects for the benefit of the district landowners, shall be submitted to the appropriate GSA under conditions 12, 13, and 17 to determine if the proposal or project is consistent with the affected GSP in maintaining the Vina groundwater basin. So we have achieved the goal, which is make sure groundwater recharge is considered and approved by the GSA. We just removed the part of it that restricted ownership. Because frankly, I think LAFCO would be overstepping its bounds to do so.
So in English, the GSA can determine if there's ownership or if not.
That'll be a GSA call down
Right.
the road.
And
yes.
so we're actually taking a power away from this water district in a way. And it's in a more generally going to be applied by the GSA.
I will say generically across the board, there are so many conditions. This is a belt and suspenders set of conditions.
Okay,
We have multiple times said that they have to go to the GSA in multiple different ways.
I accept that change.
I accept.
All right, so are there any other changes, Steve?
That's all I have.
All right, so
I'm sorry.
we now have a resolution
He has one more.
with those modifications.
One more.
I just want to reiterate one more, and it wasn't in here, but we don't need it to be in the resolution. But we have a formal letter from M&T to remove those two particular parcels from the district, which we can do just by action of the commission. It does not need to be reflected in the resolution because the map will be updated. It goes forward.
So for education to the public, can other people withdraw?
So obviously, as was spoken about last in December and today, anybody could have come to any of these meetings and said, I want out, and we would have taken them out. At the close of the meeting today, those that are in, and those that are out, and we will move forward with the protest proceedings and election. Having said that, at any point along the line, any landowner can request removal from the district for any reason. And that would come back to LAFCO for a detachment of property.
But that's really under the water code.
It's under LAFCO code and water code.
One last question, Steve. At a later date, could any landowner be asked to be added?
Absolutely.
And how would the process
So
work?
that process is similar to all other annexations, such as, you would
Okay.
do at Paradise Park and Rec.
So for the purposes of the resolution, the ones that you've already given us completes the resolution and the conditions.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have that in the form of a motion, so that we now have something to talk about. And so let's talk about it. First of all, is there anyone who wishes to be heard concerning the motion?
Sorry, this is Deborah. This is Deborah. I was trying to get my mute button. I think it's very confusing, just letting you know. At least participating virtually, it's very difficult to follow what is actually part of the resolution and what is not.
Call question.
Well, I'm just wondering, there were some things that were left out. There were some things that were added. I just think it would be very helpful to the public if we could see the resolution as it's actually being stated. It's very complicated, as Mr. Lucas said, and I'm just making that observation.
Well, the draft resolution has been amended slightly. I mean, the people that are here obviously have had an opportunity to listen. Those amendments don't amount to a great deal. Some of it's just typos and clarifications. But the entire resolution has been available this last week.
I understand that. I'm just saying.
I'd be more interested, Supervisor Lucero, in any comments about the motion itself on the merits.
Well,
If you have,
my concern is on the change requested by the proponents in terms of the ownership question, as has been brought up in testimony, having the Vina GSA make those decisions. I don't think there is any decisions. The council stated very clearly that whoever recharges the water owns that recharged water. So I don't think that's a question, and that's not a condition that could be put on them in terms of owning or not owning the water. So I was confused by what Mr. Lucas was referring to in terms of conditions regarding that aspect that the Vina GSA could put on them.
all right, does anyone else have anything to say about the motion? If not, I will ask the clerk to kindly call the roll.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Kimmel Shu,
Aye.
Chair Leverance,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Sharman, as I see you've been here for the entire item.
Aye.
Commissioner Shepherd,
Aye.
thank you.
That takes care of it. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Can I ask one quick question of staff? So now that the resolution has been approved, at what point will we bring back the discussion about divisions?
It's going to be a while. The
they've gotta go
condition
through
says
the
6 months from the date
protest
it's
vote and
complete,
all
but we
that.
still have to go through the protest, the election, formation. So
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
It's all.
We're still, if you could leave quietly, because we're still in session. We have a few items to take care of. I guess the big thing we have is appointment of the Budget Committee. I've already got a volunteer and Supervisor Kimball-Shu for the supervisors. Who on the city would like to serve? Let's see, who did we have the last time?
Commissioner Shepherd would step up and be willing to do it again.
Are you volunteering again, I hope?
I am.
Okay, good. That takes care of that. And that narrows down to the district people. Oh, we have a wave over here. So we now have a budget committee. That for that to be worked out in the future. Steve, is there anything else that we need to deal with?
Turn.
All right, we are adjourned then.
Bye, everybody.
Aye. Yeah.
Quicker than I
Thank you
thought.
for your